Let's do it again. In this video, we're going to learn how to make a nice button. I'm going to take the rounded rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Using the up and down arrows, you're going to see I have the ability to change the roundness of the corners of the rectangle. So for me, that's okay. If we zoom in now, we're all going to be familiar with anchor points. So this vector rectangle has anchor points that I can move individually, just like pretty much that I can move individually, as we've learned. Now, this rectangle is filled with a gradient, and I'm going to add a stroke. Alright, so we've started to make a button. Definitely not pretty yet. I'm going to kind of get creative just to show you guys another tool. There's these beautiful tools. I'm going to undock the whole panel, which kind of allow me a bunch of different options. So this is the width tool. This allows me to kind of like grow or add weight to certain sections of my design that I kind of like. And there's a whole bunch of different ones. Warp tool allows me to just kind of play around with the shape a bit. Let's have fun. Let's make a fun button. Swirl tool. If I keep it going, it just keeps making swirls. Kind of fun. Pucker tool. This will grow, or sorry, this will kind of like a bow tie. That's kind of fun. Alright, let's make a nice bow tie. If I want to bring down the diameter of the circle, if I hold Alt and I drag, you're going to see it's going to shrink the diameter. So now I can do a little bit of a smaller warp for my bow tie. Again, if I hold Alt and I drag out, you're going to see it's larger now. So let's look down. Bloat Tool. This is just going to bounce it out. This is kind of funny. Almost looks like a dog treat now. Scallop tool. This kind of just like, I don't know the exact word. This kind of just gathers everything. You can get different results trying different things. The crystalline tool. I like this tool. Just you can make kind of like stars. And lastly, the wrinkle tool. Makes it look kind of like a wave. So now that we have our bow tie, again drawn from a rectangle, I have a couple little options here. I'm going to add a big circle right here to make it start looking more like a bow tie. I'm just going to fill it with black. Center it a bit. And there's a nice tool called the free transform tool here. So if I select it, it's going to allow me to freely transform whatever shape is selected. And if I right click, change a shape, and there's a few other options. If you right click and you transform, you could shear, which is kind of like an italic for a font. It kind of puts it on an angle. It kind of skews it on an angle. I don't want that. I'm happy with my object like that. So just a little side note, if I go into my layers panel, I can lock layers right here so that they're not movable anymore. And that's kind of handy sometimes if you have your object exactly where you want it to be. So I've started drawing this. Now I'm just going to add a bit of flair to the bow tie to make him look a little more 3D. So we have this beautiful tool here, called the mesh tool. And what this does is, you'll see, it's going to kind of make my shape go crazy, for sure. But it allows me to add kind of paths randomly. These paths are movable, just like with the pen tool. But what's really fun about these is, if I bring my swatches back out, I'm going to bring out the Pantone swatch. Look at my grays. I can click and drag swatches onto my shape to start creating even a more dynamic bow tie look. What this does is kind of creates a very elaborate gradient. It creates a very, and a lot of logos are done like this, because we get bored of similar logos, similar gradients all the time. Obviously, I would need to perfect this, just playing around a little bit. I now want to select the circle, so I'm just going to unlock the layer, and I'm going to add, and now I'm going to add a different type of gradient. So I'm going to go to gradients, and I'm going to do simple radial. And I'm going to click and drag that onto my center. So obviously now this is a radial gradient, and I have the ability to edit it a lot. So if I go Windows, Gradient, it's going to bring out a gradient panel. This panel is cool because whatever gradient I have selected, I have the ability to edit it. So I can bring in a few little options here. I can add colors by just clicking on the bottom, and I can remove colors by clicking on the color and dragging away while it's still being held. I can change even the opacity of a color, so how much it is transparent. I'm just going to make this black. And I have the ability with this tool selected here, the gradient tool now, to move the gradient around even in my object. I have the ability to rotate the gradient. I can move this a lot. I can edit it tremendously. And this allows me to further perfect a nice little design. I'm just going to select this now, and I'm just going to add a drop shadow. So under Effect, Stylized Drop Shadow, and add hit OK. And I would obviously need to perfect this, but you can kind of get the idea.